It's Richard Power-Sayeed, a former Labour Party official. He's also author of the book 1997, The Future That Never Happened, A History of New Labour. Well, I tell you what, Richard, we're very much into the future that is happening right now with a new Labour government, and there's a lot to get to.
There is quite a bit, isn't there?
Good morning to you. Let's get straight. Let's just talk about these latest immigration figures. I mean, basically, huge numbers. I mean, let's not go through the numbers in detail. Huge numbers of people are still coming to this country. These are figures are to June 24. All under the Tories, entirely up to them. Most of these are legal rivals with visas coming here to work, or dependents, or their students. Some of these figures are going down year on year, but they're massively up on where they were when the last Tory government was elected in 2019. We've had a promise that immigration will be brought down by Keir Starmer. Do you think there's any likelihood that that is going to happen?
I mean, let's just think about who these people are who are coming in, right? They're not mostly, a huge proportion of them are being invited in order to fill in gaps in our economy.
They're applying for jobs.
I mean, some of them literally are invited in, but, you know, we're trying to attract them because they're filling in gaps in our economy. Huge proportion of them are paying twice for the NHS, right, because they're paying taxes plus they're paying the NHS surcharge. Loads of them live in really difficult conditions. They do work very, very difficult jobs.
I'm not attacking, I'm not criticising those people.
I know you're not, but I'm saying that I don't see there as being this catastrophic problem. I think our country does really well.
Where do these people live? And often with the young people, where do their children go to school? And when they need a doctor's appointment, that's the point. It does impact other people who are competing for those same jobs, who are competing for that same housing, who are competing for those school places and trying to get a GP appointment.
Well, let's talk about that. With housing, the housing shortage isn't primarily because of migration. That's
because of abject incompetence by all governments of all hues.
Bingo.
But let's not make it worse.
And so then let's talk about access to the NHS. You've got far more people coming to this country to work for the NHS, plus people coming to this country and paying twice for the NHS than you've got demand coming in for it.
People can pay as much as they want, but if you can't get a GP appointment in your local surgery, you can't get a GP appointment in your local surgery.
But I'm saying that that's not because of migration, because migrants are bringing in both the workforce and also the money for it. So blaming migrants for the fact that the NHS has been defunded for so long.
The surcharge is not covering the cost of the NHS. It just isn't. Have you been in an A&E lately?
They are paying taxes and they are paying the surcharge.
Yes, good.
So they're paying twice for the NHS.
But the level of income that most people who are immigrants is paying is, I'm sorry, you look at all the students and the like as well, and that many of the dependents doesn't even remotely cover the cost of NHS treatment. It's an absolute nonsense. It costs way more than that. What about this? I mean, we know the stats already on illegal migrants and asylum seekers as well. Now, we're talking that those are down there. We've still got hundreds coming across every day. I mean, it's a rotten weather today, so maybe we won't get any today. But it seems to me that Mother Nature has more say over who comes to our country on a dinghy across the channel than does Keir Starmer, or if we ever did appoint someone who was a commander for border control. We've still got that issue there. This government is still going to have to face up, whether they like it or not, to the fact that the British public do not want to have huge numbers of either illegal migrants or legal migrants competing for them for jobs and housing.
Well, look, I'm not going to give you the Labour Party line on this. I'll tell you what I think, which is that long-term, the only way that you deal with the small boats crisis is by giving people safe and legal ways to apply for asylum.
A lot of these people won't get through on a safe legal route, and then they'd still be paying people smugglers.
So those... No, I don't think...
Priority is not going to be given for a bunch of 20-year-old men to turn up in Britain. We're going to be giving it to children and women. It's not going to... These people are not going to be priority.
We'll talk about the young men who come to this country. Why do young men often... why are they often the first people who come to the country?
Because the families will club together, they send them ahead.
Because... if you say, is it going to be Granny and Grandpa who you send to travel thousands of miles across land, possibly be raped and murdered on the way? No. Is it going to be the daughter? Is it going to be the mum and dad who are earning for the family?
They send the youngest, strongest member of the family.
The one and the terrible risks that those young men experience because they are so desperate. Now, some of them have got the legal right to be here, and some of them do not.
They're so desperate to get somewhere where they can make a better life for themselves. But they're already somewhere better because they're already in Europe.
And the reason that they come to the UK, some of them, a very small proportion of them, let's remember, because the vast majority don't come to the UK, the ones who come through Europe, the tiny proportion who do end up coming to the UK, they do so because they can speak English, or because they've got family members here already, or because they've got family members here, so they've got networks here.
Doesn't give them a right to come here.
I didn't say that.
And it doesn't mean they're desperate at the point they pay people smuggler
We're talking about why they come here.
But they're not desperate at that point.
You talked about why they come here.
Listen, there are about 2 or 3 billion people on this planet, Richard, who could have a better life here. Give me a number. How many do we take?
It's not how it works.
Yeah. Hey, if we think that people who want to have a better life and they're sending when they're desperate to be here and they know someone here and they speak some English because they've watched some Hollywood movies and listened to some Beatles.
I'm not saying that we take all those people.
How many are we going to give a home to?
I didn't say that we take all those people. I said that we treat them respectfully.
I didn't say we shouldn't treat them respectfully, but how many do we take?
That's not the point.
It literally is the point.
No, it's not, because you take the number of people who have a right to be here.
You give safe routes for these people. A load of those people probably wouldn't qualify. They wouldn't be top priority. If you give safe routes to anyone who wants to apply, lives in a basket hole country, or a country that's war torn, or a country that's got civil war, country's got economic problems, you are basically saying, hey, a few billion people, come on in.
What you've described has been the law for decades.
I know,
and we have not had
people haven't
billions
been as
of people come here.
People haven't been as mobile, and they didn't have mobile phones where they could see what life was like.
You're pretending that this is the problem in our society, when the problem is that the Conservatives have defunded the police and defunded your local library and defunded the people who fill in your potholes, and then you try to find somebody to blame it on.
I'm not blaming it on
very tiny number of people.
I'm not blaming it on the immigrants. I'm blaming the politicians.
And the reason that they're coming on the small boats is because we have stopped them from coming over in safe and legal ways.
I blame the politicians, and I blame them going back years, of all parties abjectly failing the British people, and they told them what they want. Here's what we did. In 2016, we had a referendum on whether or not we should have control of our borders and national sovereignty, and people voted. I know lots of Labour people never accepted it, voted to leave the EU. There's now a report, front page of the Times, very well sourced, those journalists, saying that Keir Starmer is looking at giving up basically free movement to under 30s for European Union citizens under 30 to come and live and work here without a visa for 3 years, and Brits being able to go to perhaps one EU country and work there. Is that, as we're asking our audience today, an attempt to reverse Brexit by the back door?
Does it say that Starmer is considering it, or does it say that Starmer will have to consider it in order to get a free trade agreement?
It says this is what the EU is going to want, and we know that the EU will desperate...
Now we get the facts. Now we get the facts. You have been saying to people that there is a Labour Party plan for ending Brexit. I shouldn't even repeat those words because it's such nonsense. It is, I think, actually, Julia, and I don't say this lightly, I think you're actually a little bit at risk of being disingenuous with your listeners there.
Listen.
Because what has actually happened is that Ursula von der Leyen has put out her negotiating position, and some people in think tanks in Westminster have said, well, we think that if Keir Starmer wants a free trade agreement with the EU, then he'll have to agree with some elements of this. And you have turned that into their ending Brexit.
I said Labour may bring back free movement. I haven't said will, have said may. Quote from a government source.
You said it was a Labour Party plan. I heard you as I came into the studio.
A government source is quoted by the Times, and by these journalists know their sources. No one will say it publicly at this stage, but there is an acknowledgement that this is an area where we will need to move.
They're talking about Erasmus. They're not talking. They're talking about.
That's not what they're talking about. That's not what they're talking about.
A couple of hours ago.
The move could see EU nationals under the age of 30 being allowed to live and work in the UK for up to 3 years, with a reciprocal arrangement for UK citizens.
That's not in the quote. That's in the journalists' reporting. They say.
I think they know what they're quoting.
They say further down that Erasmus is the likely thing.
That's another thing. That's
also
a student exchange. You're not a student to the age of 30. Most people
The thing that I think is actually disingenuous is to say that 3-year visas is the same as free movement. We don't say that we've got free movement between here and Australia or between here and Canada. That's what we have with them. We've got 3-year visas for 18 to 30-year-olds. It's a great system. It's a good system that will benefit Brits as well. I don't think we'll end up doing it.
But you think it'll be a benefit? I think our audience
that
were very interesting. Just want to finally just ask you, 20-mile-per-hour zones. Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary, she's basically said it should be up to local councils, which should be up to local people, as we know. I mean, my local council, they ask the local people what we want. We say we don't want something, we do want something. They do exactly what they were going to do anyway,
then you can
completely regardless. And I do every single opportunity I get. However, 20-mile-per-hour zones being brought in across the country. We saw it in Wales and already rolling it back in Wales because it's so unpopular. Low traffic neighbourhoods, low traffic neighbourhoods, again, very unpopular, brought in without local people say so. This is an issue, isn't it? Because this is a very unpopular move for motorists.
It literally saves children's lives. Like, how can you not support it? I just don't even get it.
Wait a minute. Here's the thing. 20 miles per hour, you've got a much better chance of surviving being hit by a car than 30 miles per hour. Isn't that an argument for have 10 mile per hour zones or, I don't know, 0 cars?
So it's not an argument for
Isn't
that
it?
because
Same logic.
Because it is the same logic.
How can you be against that, Richard?
I thought
Don't you
were
want
a
to save children's lives?
I thought you were a conservative.
I'm not a conservative.
You're not a conservative.
No, neither with a small c nor a big c.
Well, a small c conservative position, which is the one that I would support in this case, is that the logic of an argument does not have to be extended to its extreme, right? So the fact that you have a 20 mile per hour limit is a balancing of the risks, which are very great to pedestrians or cyclists
and a local residential street, a little residential street outside a school, absolutely fully support that. But on a major high street, my local high street, we're 3 lanes across on both sides. And yet it's now down to 20 miles per hour.
Well, that's terrible town planning, isn't it, if that's a high street?
Well, it's a major arterial route in and out of London, and it's at 20 miles per hour.
It's also reducing the amount of, you don't like low traffic neighbourhoods. If you take people down to 20 miles per hour on a street like that, then you've got far less pollution
that's
for the
been
people.
Debunked, I believe.
No,
actually.
far less pollution for the people who are on that street, and means their children are much less likely to get asthma, much less likely to get sick from that.
It's just solid traffic on that street 24/7 all times. It's actually got worse. But
bringing it to 30 miles an hour isn't going to help them, is it?
No, but we can all get somewhere a bit quicker. Richard Power-Sayeed, it's always such a pleasure to have you in. He always gives as good as he gets.